Hi everyone, I'm not sure if I can see it because the light is just in my eyes, so it's good, as Mati said. So my name is Anastasiia, for those who didn't know, and yes, it's spelled with double I actually. And that's an important part of my presentation. You will ask why, but a year ago, I would be so scared to say that it's actually not with Z, J, and A, that I would get a wrong school certificate. I'm not kidding you guys, twice in a row. So it's me, Anastasiia with double I, with an S, and today we're going to talk about fear. And we're going to go beyond fight or flight, and we're going to rethink fear in the modern world. So let's get started. How many of us have been scared today? That is a very important question. Time period doesn't matter, reason doesn't matter. Like, just, have you felt scared today? Because I certainly did. I'm very scared right now. Yes. Okay, and what about yesterday? What about last week? Yeah. What about like last year? At least once throughout your whole life. Like every day almost, right? Yes. Thank you. And that just shows us that fear is actually an inevitable and indivisible part of our life. And it's completely okay. I'm very scared right now to stay in front of you and talk, but here I am. So imagine, like, fear is usually mentioned in negative context, right? Fear of rejection, fear of public speaking, fear of heights. So all the stuff stopping us from exciting jumping with parachutes or going to talk to that person we found interesting for 2 years. How would cool it be to just be fearless? To feel no fears and just be able to do anything you want, right? Everyone wants it, who doesn't? But would it be actually that cool to be just fearless? Let's take a look here. So this part of our brain is called amygdala. It's very small. It has the size of an almond, literally, 2 almonds in your brain. That's why amygdala. I think it makes sense. And those are the reason you feel fear, anxiety, aggression, and all the conventionally negative emotions. So basically, that's why we feel fear. And let's take a look here. Patient S&M is an American woman who is suffering from a very rare genetic disease called Urbach-Wiethe, in the result of which her amygdala get almost fully destroyed, as we can see here, because it's empty, right? And here it's like a healthy amygdala. This woman has never ever felt a sense we call fear. When the researchers learned about it, they tried to prove that wrong in all accessible ways. So they took her to exotic pet shops and make her hold poisonous snakes and spiders, although she said she doesn't like them. They took her to one of the most haunted houses in the whole world, imagine. And she was the one touring and cheering them up and being so excited about it. They even shown her the scary movies like Shining, nothing worked. If that doesn't show how fearlessness was affecting her, the peak of it was when she was walking home once through a dark alley and a man attacked her with a knife. He put the knife right next to her throat and said, "I'm going to stab you if you don't give me your money or belongings." And guess what her response was? "Okay, stab me." So like, it shows us how fearless that woman was. Her fear levels never went above 2. And that's the perceived fear scale. The maximum was 10. So she just felt slight discomfort at max. So basically, that shows us that fear is a very vital, a very needed evolutionary concept, without which we as humans probably wouldn't be here today talking right now, because we just wouldn't survive. But how does it work? How does the mechanism, how our brain processes it? So basically, let's imagine. Fear is a necessary for survival mechanism, which supports evolution, right? Without which we humans probably wouldn't be here today. And how does it work? So let's imagine. We see something officially scary. Oh no, there is a rattlesnake, right? How does it get processed in our brain? So first of all, it goes to the sensory waste station of our brain called the thalamus. And then it sends it to the visual cortex, which is right there. And your visual cortex has multiple layers. So the first layer breaks the image down into pixels. The second layer breaks it down into lines. The third layer breaks it down into the moving lines, and layer after layer until the whole moving picture is composed. It takes quite some time, right? But additionally to that, there is a short way, a short pass from thalamus to all familiar organ to us, amygdala. It's cool, right? Our amygdala can know we're scared before we're even consciously aware of it. Before we even know we're looking at a snake, our amygdala can know it and can signalize it. That's cool, right? My amygdala knows I'm looking at a snake. Wonderful, great, what's about it? Actually, there is a downside to it. Surprising, right? This complexity in your visual cortex, layer after layer, and then going through your memory, and then checking out all of the snakes you know to actually determine it's a snake, it's all done for a reason. To make sure you're accurate about what you see, and it's actually a threat. That's why amygdala gets rapid, privileged access to information, but it goes with the cost of its accuracy. Therefore, our brain is often just reacting to the false alarms, to some not real snakes, but for example, a garden hose, right? So, for that, fear is very vital as a concept. We mentioned about it already. Not to get under a car while crossing a street on a red light, not to fight with animals bigger than your own, not to touch poisonous snakes, so many snakes today. And for our forefathers, it was not to hunt for mammoth alone, for example, but we don't have mammoth anymore today in the 21st century. So why is it still called the age of anxiety? You know that animals exhibit symptoms of poor mental health when they're removed from their natural habitat, and that just seems to be what we, as humans, have essentially done to ourselves. So basically, let's take a look at the typical man in history. A bad harvest for him would mean starvation. A disease would mean death, and the only thing you could do was pray. He probably didn't have an access to a doctor, and even if he did, pre-modern medicine killed just as many as it saved. He probably would have to bury one of his children, and his wife had a 1 in 10 chance of dying while giving birth to that children. Everything about that life, for us modern humans, seems scary and uncertain. But was it actually that way? Let's take a look at it from a different perspective. Back then, most of the people had their jobs fixed at their births, and even if they didn't have to worry about some technological progress or artificial intelligence taking over their job in a couple of years. They didn't have to worry that they're going to be a failure because they didn't climb up the social ladder and didn't build up a fortune, because there simply was no social ladder back then. They didn't have to worry about cultural and religious changes, because those, even if they did occur, they did very slowly, step by step. Parents didn't have to worry their children will reject their values, and children, in their turn, didn't have to worry their children will reject their values. So, if we're looking at the life back then, there were two spheres. One seemed beyond anyone's control, like diseases or harvest, right? And the second was so fixed and so internal that there was just no sense to worry about it. And in between, there were few things to worry about, like if your neighbor is plotting to steal a sheep of yours or something like that. So if we're looking at it from our perspective, from the modern world perspective, almost the reverse is true. Everything is changing so fast right now. New jobs appear, old jobs disappear, new technologies, we're scared of pandemics and stuff, of wars even right now. So our age is very scary actually. And all we know about the modern society, that in 30 years it will not look like it does today. So our modern world presents us with so many rattlesnakes we have created for ourselves that our brain just doesn't know when the alarm is false and when it's not. So it just stays actively alerted all the time. So let's think about it for a second. How many opportunities had fear stolen from you? How many job interviews? How many new people you haven't met because you were too scared to talk to them? How many wonderful experiences? How many once-in-a-lifetime memories fear has stolen away from you? For me, a lot. And basically, this mechanism is designed to help us to survive, to procreate, and to live a long, happy life. Why doesn't it? How can we befriend it and make it our servant, not our boss? So basically, for your anxiety or stress to be useful, it has to fulfill 3 conditions. The first one, the threat has to be real. So make sure it's actually a snake. The second one, this has to be something you have at least some kind of a control of. And third of all, the amount of stress should be at a level where it motivates you. For example, to escape a dangerous situation, not just overwhelms you and sends you lying scary on the ground and being eaten by animals, right? So, how do we deal with fears? My 2 tips from my experience, and I think a lot of people can relate, are quite cliche, but they seem to work. So the first one is to face it. I know everyone says it, face your fears and all of that stuff, but actually think about it for a second. Give it a chance. Don't give your brain time to get scared, to think about it and to realize how scary something can be, how the consequences might affect you. Because probably you didn't know, but your brain is a great scriptwriter for all of those plots and overthinking and just those awful scenarios that keep going in your head. So next time you have a chance, just grab that microphone and ask your question on that conference of 200 people looking at you. Just do it and see how it goes, because in most of the times, it will not be as scary as it seems. And you will realize it as soon as your act of bravery is over. So just don't give your brain time to realize it first. Second option is the completely opposite, actually, to deny it. So you have to debunk the false rationalizations your brain provides you with, and to actually objectively assess the disadvantages and advantages of a situation, along with threats it brings to you, or the safety. Like, realistically speaking, what is the chance your uncovered leg would be dragged by a monster down your back to a monster world? Probably quite low. So, that's the ways I deal with fear, and recommend you trying those. Although you shouldn't limit yourself to only those. You can experiment with those. Just find the one that works for you and it makes you feel safer in a dangerous for you situation. So, for the last time, think about how wonderful your life would be without fear. Without all of the unnecessary fears, let's be clear, because we made clear that fear can be useful and can be necessary for our survival and evolution. How many great people will you meet? How many once-in-a-lifetime memories you will create? How many events and countries and cities you will attend? How many stories you will have to tell your kids when you'll be 40, and then your grandkids when you'll be 80, if you want kids, of course. No pressure. How many just amazing stuff will happen to you in your life, because you live only once, so you have to use it wisely. So just think about it next time you're scared of something irrational. And finally, go jump with that parachute. Go talk to that person you've always wanted to talk to. Just go do that, actually. Grab that microphone and share your ideas, because I'm so sure they're worth of sharing. And most important, courage and brave heart are not about having no fears. It's not about being fearless. It's about being scared, being so afraid and still doing it, even despite being afraid. Be afraid and do it still. And never, ever, ever let fears stop you from achieving your dreams. Thank you.